And we will have the following speakers: Miguel Palacín, the leader of the Andean Coordination of Indigenous Organizations from Peru. Also, Sandra Torlucci, but unfortunately she wasn't able to attend today, so we will have in term the leader of the Arts National Coordinator, and also the Dr. Cosley Lamtok, technical advisor to the OASC General Secretary and Director of Cultural Heritage and the Arts. And the last term we will have our moderator, Rodolfo Hamawi. So we will start with our first presenter. Let's now add to our first Roundtable's final message and contribute to the geopolitical challenges of the Great South. And to start, I would like to say that our friend Kulsi should be here. He's not my friend, but I believe we've established a sort of friendship after regular Zoom meetings 2 or 3 times a week. And as it has been previously mentioned, he is not physically present because of the visa rejection, but he's in a video. So let's dim out the lights and let's see whether we can have his video.
la terre a déjà été conquise. Il ne nous reste plus qu'à l'habiter.
Hermanas y hermanos, camaradas del Coloquio Gran Sur en Buenos Aires.
In the big South Colloquium or Great South Colloquium in Buenos Aires, I would like to greet you
Melilla y Ceuta,
with
los
this
inmigrantes.
Song
Son
honoring
unas imágenes
immigrants
y sonidos desde el Zócalo de México y que ya
from
tienen cerca de 20
Mexico
años.
to the south. This is a concert I perform at El Zócalo, Mexico. From Ethiopia, I greet
Que el
you.
ser humano se
So
levantó
Ethiopia
para caminar
is
hacia
a
los
land
confines de
where
la tierra.
humans walk to the confines and the remote areas
Es
of
nuestra
the
madre
earth.
y somos
Mother
sus hijas
Earth
y sus hijos. La tierra
have children,
ya ha sido
and
conquistada,
earth
es lo que
has
se dice.
already
Lo
been
único
conquered.
que nos queda es habitarla. Lo inaceptable es que
But the
algunas personas
unacceptable
se
is
esfuerzan
that some
por querer
people
apropiársela
make the
y
effort
impedir
to
a los
appropriate
demás caminar,
the earth and
avanzar.
hinder other humans
Estas
from moving
personas,
forward.
los que olvidan
These
es que
people
si los seres humanos tienen pies, es
don't
para
realize
caminar.
that if humans
tienen
have
ojos,
feet, it is
es
for
para
walking,
mirar
and if
el
they have
horizonte
eyes,
de
is
su
to look
sueño
into the
y caminar
horizon
hacia el
and
cielo
walk
o el mar,
towards the sea and the
hacia
horizon,
la nieve o el
towards
desierto,
the
hacia la
desert,
selva
towards
o
the
la
jungle and the mountains.
A pesar de todo, me
Despite
gustaría compartir con ustedes algunas palabras en
not
torno
being
de
able
una
with you, I would like to
reflexión que he
share some
intitulado
words
Co-crear la sagralidad
on
de lo político
co-creation, the
el significado
sacrality of the
comunalista
political,
y eso en el marco del
within
panel,
the framework of this
en que
panel
se trata de
of
la integración
integrating
cultural sur-sur.
South-South cultural
Compartiré entonces con ustedes
topics.
3
So
momentos de
I
manera
would like to
corta y
share
también
some words
un
with
poquito
you.
confusa, hablando de cultura,
Let's talk
de
about
arte, de
culture,
cuerpos, de sagralidad
arts,
política y con
bodies,
un
political
territorio de
sacrality.
predilección que es nuestro Gran Sur. Empezaré con una
I
litanía
will
de
start
preguntas. Y preguntas que tampoco estoy seguro que tendrán respuestas, pero que deben de estar.
with a question. I don't know whether you will have the
¿Qué
answers to
culturas,
this.
qué prácticas artísticas en estos tiempos de confusión
Artistic
y
practices
de
in times
objetos
of
culturales
confusion, of
no
cultural
identificados?
items that are not
¿Qué
identified?
cultura? En un
What
mundo
is culture
globalizado,
in a globalized
donde
world
los vertiginosos desequilibrios sociales se instalan
social
insidiosamente,
imbalances
donde los
happen
microcosmos sociales
in
se
silence,
descomponen, donde
where
hordas de personas sin
hordes
techo,
of
sin
people
comida, sin trabajo, sin
without
dignidad,
a roof,
sin
without
futuro,
work, without
emigran
a future, populate the world
sin cesar.
and walk
¿Qué culturas?
unrelentlessly.
En un mundo
Culture
donde reina
in a
en su
world
máximo esplendor la
with
zombificación del hombre
the
por el mercado,
meaning of
un mundo
man
donde
and
el
the
otro
market,
mismo es un espectador,
where
consumidor pasivo
we are
y
passive
lobotomizado,
spectators,
pavloviano, adicto a los productos del
addicted
mercado y
to
incapaz de
market
cualquier
movements
juicio
and
crítico y de reacción,
incapable of critical
hasta el punto
judgment,
de
up
que la
to the
máquina
extent
engrasada
that the
con sus
machine
gavientes simbólicos, sus ejércitos represivos
with oppressive
se exersan
armies
sobre él.
are exerted on man
Lo que
and
necesitamos es la
humankind. What we
integración
need
cultural.
is cultural
Sur-sur.
integration,
Y para
South-South
nosotros
cultural integration.
es un imperativo político.
And this is a political
Lo
imperative
es,
for us.
porque nos permitirá reconocer nuestras culturas,
This will allow us to get to know our
redescubrir su
cultures
valor
better,
y encontrar
to
sus
value
raíces, los
and
puntos de
find their
convergencia,
roots and
sus cruces de
convergent
caminos,
points.
pero también los
And
momentos
this will
en que se
also allow
separen
us
en
to
la
view
encrucijada para
the
volverse a encontrar de nuevo.
entanglement
Nos
that
permite
takes different
saber apreciar
roads.
lo que
This
somos
will allow
nosotros
us to
mismos,
appreciate
nuestras
what we are,
identidades,
our
nuestras
identities,
alteridades.
and our otherness.
La integración cultural sur-sur
The South-South
nos
cultural
permitirá
integration will
descubrir
allow
nuestras
us to
identidades
discover
múltiples,
our
las de
multiple
los pueblos siempre en
identities
camino,
of the
que
native
celebran lo que se
peoples
dice la
that
onda.
celebrate the
Nos
land,
permitirá
that will
evitar la
issue
reproducción de
a
esquemas de
connection of
pensamiento y
schemes and
modelos
thoughts and models
organizacionales
and
dictados por
organizational
las instituciones del globalismo
schemes
feliz.
enabled by
Nos
happy
permitirá
globalism. It
exigir,
will allow
porque
us
seremos muchos
to meet.
y
It will be
solidarios,
plenty of us
exigir la movilidad de nuestros
that will allow
investigadores,
us
de nuestros
to
artistas,
do
de
research,
nuestros
to
pensadores.
mobilize our thinkers, our
Nos
artists.
permitirá
It will
construir
allow us
políticas
to build
culturales
cultural
endógenas,
policies
auténticas, y que
that are
darán la espalda
authentic,
al dictado
and they will
del
give way
monoculturalismo
to
y que
multiculturalism.
integrarán
They
el
will
trinomio
integrate
cultura,
different
educación,
cultures,
prácticas
education,
artísticas.
and artistic practices.
La integración cultural sur-sur
South-South cultural
nos permitirá
integration will
recuperar
allow us
nuestros
to
espacios
recover our
interseccionales, que son más
intersectional
bien de la
spaces
reunión de múltiples perspectivas
with
artísticas
different
ideológicas
artistical and ideological
humanistas, lejos del
perspectives,
mercantilismo
away
desenfrenado que
from
impide
the
construir
market
puentes de
trends
saberes.
that hinder the building
Y
and
entonces
construction
es
of
la
new
humanidad entera
ideas.
la que
Humankind
debería
entirely
apropiarse
should
de nuestra historia, hacer una narración
appropriate
digna,
their own
objetiva, para que
story,
los muertos
make it collective,
no estén
so
más
that our
envueltos en el silencio y para nada.
ancestors are not dead in silence.
Pero la memoria, que debe de ser constantemente dinámica,
We
debe
need
ser
to
también la del
establish
futuro.
a dynamic for the future.
Es decir, la que construye
We need to build
un marco mucho más humano donde los
framework
niños
that is
sienten el
more
deseo de vivir, de
humane,
crear, de reír, de
to
imaginar,
find a
de
way to
inventar el
live, to
futuro, de
invent, to
resistir.
create the future and resist.
Y quizás
Maybe
habrá que, por eso,
we will have to
interrogar violentamente o minuciosamente
and
las
start working
trascendencias
and
cuya
assessing
ideología está constituida por el Estado
transcendental theories
totalitario,
built by the state,
incluidas las religiones, el capital y la tecnociencia. Todo eso que destruyen sistemáticamente los cuerpos.
we need to
No
address
olvidamos
this.
que todas las civilizaciones
Let's
contienen
not forget that all
enterrados en ella
civilizations
fundamentos que en
have
la hora de la
fundaments,
decadencia
and in
pueden
times
resurgir
of
en
decline,
un
we
impulso de
might see the
creatividad
emergence
y
of
de
creativity
supervivencia
and
para
survival
irrigar la renovación, la
to be
potencia
able
popular.
to
El
address
desafío será entonces
popular power,
devolver
and the challenge
territorio
will
y
be
sentido
to
a la cultura,
unveil and
a la
provide
palabra
sense to the
y al
word
cuerpo
culture,
para
to the
recuperar
word
lo que
and to
es
the body
la
to recover
sagralidad de lo político,
the
es decir, el
the
sentido
relevance
comunalista.
of the political and do away with the sense of
Muchas
colonialism.
gracias
Thank
por
you
su
so
atención.
much for your attention.
Bien, lo tuvimos.
Okay, so we were able to have him a little bit. 5 or 6 brief points in order to position some thoughts about culture and South-South integration. The first thing that I think we should say is that culture is a dangerous issue. We need to break with this idea of romanticize it, just supposing it's something nice, and we have to fix the culture as a field of dispute, political dispute and dispute for senses. Contemporary neo-fascisms understand this perfectly, and they lead us to the battlefield of the cultural battle, and that is where we face models of world where the culture is configuring these common senses. So its art is of incredible beauty, but culture also has a devastating effect over the consciousness when it is strengthened to use the domination. We do not love what we do not know. So the society of the arts fragments cultures, identities, and peoples in order to return us a unity of show that others produce. So art and culture can recompose or rebuild the links that the show dismantles. Canclini said a beautiful statement: to know how to tell ourselves is an essential condition so that others can take us into account. So we need to recover these capabilities, that we are the ones who should tell the stories of the South, and not to have these stories of the Che, Evita, or Cleopatra being told by Hollywood. So we also need to build maps, a cartography where we can recognize ourselves. So these maps should challenge the dominating representations of the world. We need to draw once again. It was a very surprising thing that people from tourism did in a lesson. They showed the traditional map of Argentina and the contemporary map where it is placed within the Antarctic continent. It's a different world. It's a different Argentina. It's a different space population relationship, and this is the maps that we need to rebuild. We need to decolonize knowledge, educate in diversity, look for new epistemes that integrate cultures, break with this duality on which the West was built, that split thinking from sensitivity, world from reason, and bring back this beautiful statement that is the feelings and thoughts, because we need to learn a lot from ancestral cultures in this logic. Fifth point, we need to update the critical thinking on cultural industries. It is not enough to understand its schematic and totalizing character that they do away with diversities. We need to break them. There are thousands of projects of cultural productions that are not subordinated to the market logic, to create channels and platforms for the circulation and exchange of culture in our countries. We did this in 2013. We creating the Mixur. There's 10 countries of South America that got together, created a market, and we exchanged projects and artists, and this is possible. And every 2 years, this is something that we do in South America. So why can't we do this in a wider South-South transversality? We need to think in the new senses. Technology does not talk about the new devices, but it also has to do with new ways of perceptions and language. The AI models aim at colonizing our relations with things, the way we know, the way we educate ourselves. So we are obliged to find not only critical and deregulating ways, but we need to think of these new sensitivities that are the field of action of our policies. And lastly, I would like to quote two sentences of an Argentinian thinker, that is Nicolás Casullo. We recommend him. If we're not capable of finding the words to name the new things of an era, we will just be passive actors of a time that will not be ours. And I end with another quote of Nicolás Casullo. We should not think from the politics, the field of culture, but on the contrary, we need to think of the production of the cultural producer as a planet where politics is fighting for the life between the end and the re-beginning. So before I give the floor to the colleagues, I just want to talk of a symbol, and it's a symbol of unity and courage. We are used to hugs, the hug of Lula and Cristina Kirchner. I believe that it is an excellent model of value, courage, and union. So now I will give the floor to the colleagues. Daniela Perrota, a friend of the house, an activist, fighter for education, and secretary of the National University of Art. I'm not an artist, so I am an artist in other things, but first, thank you, the UNDAP. I feel like home being here at this university is being among friends, and it always encourages us to think from our different places. So now I will be speaking as a professor for regional integration. So the previous panel, this is please do something with what you said, this union that we need. So I would like to reach you from the president of the University, National University of Arts. She had a personal issue with her mother, aging mother. Well, she had to be hospitalized. You may know how complicated that is. So I was here to listen, and suddenly I had to take on the glove and I have to speak. So in the previous panel, and each one of us, we have to state our role. I am a professor of regional integration, firstly, and part of a management team of the National University of Art that combines all the artistic languages in one same university, and it has over 100 years or just 10 years, depending on how we count it as a university or not. So we have a coexistence of different worlds and formats. And the last thing in the terms of positioning myself, I am an activist for the regional Latin American integration. So we've been fighting for regional integration from universities and also in different spaces for education. So why do I clarify all this? Because I want you to know my goal is not to speak about what I do not know. So I will speak about regional integration and about some issues because I'm here at this university and this has changed my life. Art really changes your life and it helps us think some of the issues from a different perspective. So why should we talk about regional integration? Maybe doing a liaison with the previous panel that was impeccable. They invited us to think where we had lots of our professors and what is it that we can contribute with? Well, integration is a tool of the peoples, and I had this written down before Mansour said this, but it is a tool that the peoples have, in fact, in order to reach, without being absolutely pragmatic, but at least to reach two things that in Latin America and the Caribbean are urgent and have been urgent throughout all our history, ever since we became independent states up until today. And now, footnote, next year it's 200 years of the Congress in Panama, so we have to keep on thinking issues of emancipation and culture. So what are the two elements that characterize us as a region? And it's also important to understand the Arabic world or the African region in terms of regions. On the one hand, since we are in the same continental territory with the United States, have made us coexist with a hegemonic power. So the search for autonomy has been a constant in this Latin American thinking for integration and in these political projects that were at the service of the peoples. So those who have experience, well, there's a difference between sovereignty and autonomy. Sovereignty is an attribute of the states, but autonomy also implies to be able to lead our own policies being sovereign states. And this was not present all over our history, and this is one of the tools to reach the autonomy has been historically an invention of the region, an own invention in terms of the construction of theory. A colleague talked about the regional integration. And the second topic, a challenge that we have, that we're sharing many things, is that based on what is a school of thinking that we position dependency, development, well, we have a problem related to development, and also regional integration was a tool that our peoples had, and when we had political projects that accompanied this, well, this is something that we pursued. This is something that a sociologist said, José Paradiso, not Daniela Perrota, and it talks about the unifying ideal in Latin America and this urge for unity. Other authors would say that Latin America is a nation that is unmade, and we need to solve this situation. So this is true to think Latin America, and also to think of other regions that are looking for their emancipation historically and culturally. We can think about this culture and autonomy and development. So throughout all history, the peoples have agreed with the rulers, or they've had the same color, the same face. There's two other issues that I believe are interested to think of the role of culture in this process, and that is regions are not part of geography exclusively. It's not the Latin America region, the African region, or just like we learn in Argentina, the area of the Pampas. Of course, there's a geographical component that limits and defines them, but when we think of regional integration as an emancipation tool, these are social issues built socially, and we are all the time in dispute, and this cannot be overlooked. Regional integration is dispute because we are disputing how we want to enter the world, who do we want to be close to, but not as opposing ourselves to others, but by affirming ourselves by why we are, as Masnour said. So the society is not made with others that are equals. I mean, it is easier to build an integration process, for example, in Latin America, that has to do with the language and the same challenges. But integration is made in diversity above all. And this is where we have, and here I am between regulation and pragmatic, we need to look for this minimum common denominator that makes us achieve this regional integration. And there's an essential component here, because we were told that the answer as to why we're not integrating had to do with the scale economies, or to be more foreseeable with the legal frameworks, especially integration at the head of states. But regional integration starts failing when there's not a component of a union that goes beyond these economic interests, for example. And it has to do with the possibility of building a narrative as to why it's important to get together and why we build this as important. Why should we remind together? There's a cultural and societal component that cannot be overlooked. Throughout all this tragic history of Latin America, tragic at some times and not always, that has not included the cultural integration and the construction of a narrative as to why it's important to unite and stay together. There's an issue that has to do with the field of action of culture and universities, because here I need to make use of what universities are doing today. So this leads me to a third point. I said universities. I've already used the term culture many times. So what is the status of the regional integration today? Well, if it is led by the states, it is fragmented. It comes from polarizing processes. 10 years ago, we talked about an Atlantic Bolivarian axis and a Pacific one. So today we have these fragmented, and this all has to do with this transition process in the world power. The liberal world order is in crisis, but also integration is in crisis. So partly integration as we used to know it is in crisis because of this process. So what is the status of regional integration today? Where is that? Here, with these stakeholders at university, because it was always a tool of the peoples. At the face of the failures of these political processes, with the rise of right-wing processes that we have in the region that are not or they want to suppress the previous regional integration processes as Mercosur or UNASUR. Today, the regional integration has to do with the stakeholders, that is, universities, networks of cultural stakeholders, migrant networks, rural workers networks that are articulating and working together in spite of the problems that the formal regional integration is having, that is led by the states or run by the states. There are different examples. We had the assembly of the Latin American Council for Social Sciences. There's an example of regional integration that is working. The fact that this is taking place as a first step, second or third, these exchange spaces is also an example, because this allows us to build different senses regarding why we need to integrate. And I will disagree a bit with Mansour when he said that the projects of regional integrations were not stable. In fact, they were not, but those led by the peoples are the ones that have more stability, in spite of the problems and issues that we're having right now. And a last thing that will allow me to talk and discuss about the cultural issues. Now, the questions that I posed as a professor in integration and participating in these networks for regional networks that we are working on with Africa. There are colleagues that have been working on this, but the question is, shouldn't we think it differently, how we build a regional integration? Because in fact, this tool that was at the hands of the peoples to build this regional integration, well, in Latin America, we have disputed and discussed this sense from the theory and the practice. It was always the North or the West or those the winners of this liberal world order, especially after the Second World War. They always told us how we should integrate. We should start with the economy. We shouldn't take into account the asymmetries, only including the society as a space to legitimate what we were doing and so forth. Today, this West is the one in crisis, and I wonder whether we could ask these formal regional integration processes the same that we asked up until 10 years ago, when we had regional, national projects that would support these integration projects. I believe that we can, but I think that we can do so as long as we recover and think that, well, integration is a tool at the service of the peoples, and the peoples are the ones giving meaning and sense to this integration. And what is it that we understand in terms of development? So this regional integration is no longer this formal integration led by the elites. A long time, regional integration, when we think of the frameworks that were imposed from a set of stakeholders that advocated for a certain type of integration, like a European Union was one, or the post-agreements of Marrakesh or the OECD. These always fell short, and it led to failed integration. So this idea of going back to the regional integrations of the people allows us to think of these in a decolonial way, anti-imperialistic way, also in a feministic way, because there's also these peoples dressed as women, and we shouldn't think that is geography the only thing that communicates with the Greater South. Today, the panelists talk about the pragmatic way, or and Mansour said that if he could just say this in a spicy way, is it this greater South? Is it just something that we say? We say it when we get together? Well, the South is not something where you are born, but it's something that is built. And how do we do this? I believe that here in the construction or the South, we can create from arts and cultural integration and university integration communities of practice that tension these ideas of regional integration and that generate this narrative as to why it is important to stay together and why it is important so that integration helps solve problems related to development. What is development? What are the common problems that we have in our regions? And I believe that it is key to be able to combine the pragmatic perspective with the regulatory perspective of regional integration. Pragmatic because it is in our convenience to think of these jointly, but also regulatory because we have to build a narrative for a region that embraces us all. And I was thinking of this example of coffee. I just took notes as I listened to this example, that what brings us together culturally, but also the symbolic and cultural and economic value. And you said it very well, because I'm not an expert in cultural industries, but when we think of these cultural industries that we can create regionally, this will allow us to unveil situations as to how we can integrate culturally. The cultural Mercosur, for example, that brings us together Latin American people from the South, because in Latin America we are South American, and in South America we are part of Mercosur. So this was really useful to think of regional public policies and how we can encourage regional changes from a national perspective, but this was somehow trapped with other processes of regional integration, because it was always about a social or cultural issues, unless, or with the exception of some perspective of distributionist governments, well, this implied setbacks when there's a change of administration. So I believe that we need to be able to anchor these formal integration processes with the integration of the peoples and through organizations as this one, because universities go beyond the states, they go beyond the political projects in cultural industries that can generate in the region, articulating beyond the borders, also transcend. Of course, well, then the right-wing movements just go over us, and then all this that is happening, well, happens to us. I find it really very difficult to keep myself optimistic in this moment in time of Latin America and at this moment in time of regional integration. But I believe that we can build these cross solidarities and these paths among us and with other regions, so that when peoples have again a government or an administration that reflects their face a little bit more, then they will be able to reach this integration in a more stable way. That this was the claim that we heard this morning. So I am going to be here, but I'm not an expert in art topics.
I will now pass the floor to Miguel Palacín. He is a leader of the Agro-Andean Indigenous Communities organization, and also the author of the Good Living from Peru.
Muy buenos días con todos.
Good day to everyone. Good afternoon.
Traigo el saludo de los pueblos indígenas.
I bring to you the greetings of the Quechua and indigenous communities from Peru. I would like to thank you for this invitation. And after this morning's presentation, I am highly enthusiastic. I've been working for the people of Peru and Latin American peoples, building all of these processes. And as a result of the criminalization and other issues, we have declined. This is my first time in Argentina after 10 years, but after hearing and listening to what I've heard this morning, then I realized that I'm not alone. We need to integrate each other and walk together hand in hand. So I will start by saying that indigenous peoples are not the origin of democracy. We are live peoples walking on this earth, living by doing what we've done always in our land, taking care of cosmovision, and the feeling of enthusiasm is always alongside our people. This morning I heard that this integration process will become a reality, and many of us are building on that. We have the Via Yala indigenous movement working in different caucus. I work in the Amazonia, and the CIMIA is Central American, the SICA is another organization, the LEONIC in Colombia, another one. Well, we're working on this integration as well, and we have managed to achieve the rights of the motherland and other statements that were overlooked in the past. So nowadays I will present a different vision of the people, and this is becoming universal. There are some countries that have adopted the good living strategy. So let's start. All of us realize that we're going through a climate crisis, especially in Latin America. We have the largest glaciers in the world, especially in 5 countries. We concentrate the biggest glaciers that in recent times have started to deplete, and as a consequence of global warming, this has meant the accrual and accumulation of ice in detriment of production, and in many cases this has caused and brought about disaster in indigenous people's lands. At the same time, neo-hegemonic policies is undergoing an economic crisis, and to save the crisis, we need to come to our land. They come to our land, they deplete our land, and they accrue wealth derive from our natural resources. Financial crises make the countries compete for economic growth. They're competing to see how much they can export to earn more and to grow their GDPs. And our countries that export raw materials have to hand over their territories because these natural resources are demanded from external countries. And of course, remembering COVID, we were all victims, and the indigenous people took advantage of this, and we recovered the nature as it was in the past. The rivers became cleaner, the birds flew, fishes swam freely, but it was short-lived. This allowed us to realize that we were brothers and sisters, siblings, and those who had the economic resources and those who were poor in the different communities could work together. We were the same, and this became the criteria for solidarity amongst the people. However, after this was done and over, After health implementations were over, then we went back to what we were, and even more violent as well. So all crises united: the food crisis, the energy crisis, the financial crisis, the health crisis, the moral crisis. The moral crisis has invaded the countries. Nothing is free. We have corruption everywhere. All presidents have been reported for corruption, and 3 of them are in jail. So we're going through an all-around insecurity era, and we need to find a solution to this. And these crises are an opportunity for the economy. We are talking about the carbon vouchers, and you need to be paid to preserve the forests, and this becomes marketed, and the carbon vouchers are transferred from country to country, and there's no engagement of the indigenous people. So when we talk about these kinds of crises, we have open debate, and we get together and we started working on a proposal that it's something that we've been doing for a while. It's called the good living of the indigenous people within the indigenous cosmovision, what we feel, what we look at, what we experience on a day-to-day basis. For us, the land, as our colleague from Africa has said, for us, the land includes the past, the present, and the future. It's not just a geographical area. We have spirituality, coexistence, our food, and our laws, and our habits and traditions. This is ongoing. It is ongoing nowadays. So we need to have good living conditions. If I live better, that's in detriment of others. But good living means to live in harmony with humans, with nature, and with the coexistence of our cosmovision, because we have different histories, but they're also very similar. So this is the respect for all of the existent beings, what we see and what we cannot see as well. So you cannot live without them. We need to live in harmony with the entire coexistence, and we need to understand what this is leading to. So harmony and balance is vital. It's vital throughout the process, according to our proposal of good living. So they say that civilization comes from abroad, but we had great civilizations, and they still exist throughout Latin America. The territories in Latin America combine different lands, different heritage, like Inca established over other existing people millions of years ago. And we never had the objective of accumulation wealth per se. We want to satisfy the needs of everybody, and the economy is based on the exchange and dialogue and balance and harmony with nature, with the Mother Earth, and our organizations as well. We live in a time of dualities with 2 different cosmovisions, the Western vision and the indigenous vision. The Western vision says that the land is a warehouse of natural resources, and you need to exploit them, that it is an asset that you need to exploit to produce, and man is at the center of the land, the king, who needs to exploit and make use of all of the resources available, and that it is an individualistic and racist, verticalist paradigm, and progress is linear. I start and I end in a straight line. and the end is to accumulate wealth. The indigenous cosmovision is completely different. We are part of nature. We do not exist without nature. Whatever happens to nature will happen to us. We are the children of the Pachamama, of Mother Earth, as well as water, plants, animals, hills, and forests. They are part of us as well. Our spirituality is not religious. We only worship Mother Earth in connection with all living beings. Why? Because behind the hills, we have the sun, we have the birds. They provide our food, and it's sacred land. Our God is visible. We live, we coexist with our God. Our paradigm has a holistic relationality. We have no sound in the booth. We apologize. The simultaneous interpretation has been interrupted because audio from the speaker microphone has been terminated.
Seguimos.
And we continue. Our paradigm is related to holistic relationality, our ancestral spirituality. We love who left us, their heritage, also duality. In the Andean world, everything has its other side, sweet and bitter, high, tall, night, day, women, female, male, women, men. So you will realize that everything is done in pairs. Everything is dual. There are no odd numbers in relationship with the Chacana and the Southern Cross. We have community progress. We do not think individually. We think holistically. So indigenous peoples know that this is not an easy solution, and we are now proposing a comprehensive answer to change the model of life by returning to balance and harmony with Mother Earth. That is why we propose the art of good living. And we should have a community democracy in good living practices. There is a representative democracy, as in all states. We choose someone to represent us for a specific period of time. And we also have participatory democracy, where everybody listens, they have engaged, and that's it. However, in the community democracy, it's another kind of democracy. It's the daily exercise of permanent consultation amongst each other. If something is wrong, then it's revocated, it's canceled. So whoever is in charge has to obey and then follow orders. Authority in good living. In the West, authority puts the people who exercise it above others. There's no revocation. You are the commander. And on the other hand, in the community democracy, this person is a servant, acquires responsibility, takes care of everyone, and watches over everyone with affection. And there's also a duality. There's a couple. In democracy, in the Western democracy, it's only one person, and it's just, somebody there to accompany this person, whether it's a man or a woman. As the Kamachiqui in Quechua says, command by obeying. And community economy. Work is not a burden, it's a party. We work our land together, we do work together. All of the parties are linked to production, with harvest, with agriculture, with cattle breeding. Everything is linked. It is a party, it's not mandatory, it's not an obligation. We do not accumulate for wealth. And this is also related to what my predecessor said. We have fought against the intervention of the mining industry. They have won over our lands, and we have big corporations that have established themselves there. The state is very sophisticated. There are supervisors, and there's environmental supervision even in the municipalities. But they're doing businesses. They're not protecting. We are now in the economic fight. You are in our territory, but you need to have us as allies. We will work in environmental areas, and everything that is done through conversation. We have 100 community organizations who work together. So when you have the natural resource, then you can solve your own problems, and the state is not interfering. So also, the profits are distributed. If you're over 65, you cannot work, because the law does not allow for you to do so. But if you own your own land and you own your own business, then you may do so. And I'm sure that our Congress will try to erase all of our achievements. Community companies are not paying taxes, and we have achieved this through dialogue and through public policies. And one day they might do away with this. So we propose this community economy. What we have learned is to distribute what we earn. So it's the same kind of thinking. Things are different now. So solidarity, reciprocity is part of everything that we do in this community process. Natural resources, we don't say resources, excuse me, we say assets. Natural assets are in our territories. They belong to everyone, and they're there for everyone. Therefore, in the good living, the rational use must serve those of us who live in these territories and can only be used with our consent. Agreement 169, which is free consent, informed consent is a law, and when this is dropped, we will lose our agency, our autonomy, and we will lose consent, because they, for example, if they are going to use toxic agents, we do not grant consent, and that's it, it's over. We have our own system of land tenure with autonomy. Peru have autonomy. We can make a decision on our resources and our lands, and the state cannot interfere. Our own law, it's our main law or major law. We are born with the right. It's our own law, our proprietary law, and it's the principal law. Everything has to be based on this. So this legal system is based on the respect on humans. When somebody makes a mistake, he is punished at a community level, but they do not go to prison. We send them to our place of vigilancy. They have to comply with community service. And after the punishment is over, he can return or she can return to the community until they make up for what they have done. Community education. Community education is based on community approach and principles. The ancestors, the grandparents, they need to tell their stories, and after a certain period of time, they go to the different lands and the borders, they protect them, they preserve them, and everything is based on natural assets. Some migrate, but they still hold this idea in their minds, and many times they come back. We have what we call practical teaching from our ancestors and the elderly to the youngers, how to cultivate the time, how to work the time, how to perform traditions. Everything is taught. And we also deepen on the culture of indigenous peoples. We have 3,200 varieties of potato. They saved us from hunger after the Second World War. This is now a common crop in many places in the world. But, you know, this has been visibilized by COVID, and if they had been taken away from us, we would have lost biodiversity. And we need to be aware of technology nowadays. COVID has accelerated all of these processes. We have virtual meetings on Zoom. This was very difficult in the past. We can have virtual meetings on Zoom. We have to learn from technology. We have to learn to use these technologies. Sometimes people believe that because you're indigenous, you have to be wearing a poncho and walk barefoot and be far away from technology. But that's not so. We have boots, we have trucks, and we know how to handle technology without losing our indigenous identity. So the good living health teaches us that disease appears when there is a loss of natural balance. To take care of our health, we must take care of life in a healthy environment. How many of us in the cities, when we go back to our land, recover our health and we do away with stress? If you go and live in our community, you will lose your stress and you will recover from stress. It's like going to the movies every day. You know, it's exactly like that, and it's very dynamic. And this is the result of the harmony between human being, food, cosmos, Pachamama, and society. And we need to contribute to traditional knowledge for the treatment of many current diseases because it's a collective science. We have a lot of wise men and women who heal in our communities. The same happens with the language, right, that we are losing. And food sovereignty with good living, our mega diversity will not continue to be a commodity. We will have healthy, tasty, and sufficient food from our land, the sea, mangroves, forests, etc. Regarding the issue of COVID and crises, well, you are going through very structural adjustments. Well, in the cities, there are a lot of people who need help, but they don't have that in our communities, and nobody goes hungry. Everything circulates. This is one of the good things that we need to preserve and learn from. Families and people work, take care of, and respect and venerate the land, the water, for everyone, and we also ensure our rights and the right of our children and future generations to enjoy our natural assets. And we try to avoid patents, genetically modified foods, to avoid the contagion of the natural seeds. And we are still trying to protect them. I talked about complementarity of man-women. Everything exists in dualities. We all live in harmony. Everything is dual. It has its counterparts, and we work as one. We complement our roles, our positions, and we respect each other. We have public policies for good living. We change the current developmental model of social inequality and environmental degradation for good living. We exercise our right to self-development, that is to say, to freely decide the development we aspire to achieve. We have economic and ecological territorial zoning, controlled community management of the government programs, and mitigation of environmental impacts. We have some governments who come and divide, but many times they condition us, and then you realize that you've lost everything. So we have intercultural public policies. This is what we need. We struggle so that we have some indigenous representation in all ministries at all levels. It's not just speech or word of mouth, and delegations have to have an indigenous representation because this is an intercultural country and we're working to achieve this. Also, water is a living being, that it is created and recreated. So we need to protect our water sources by preventing privatization and contamination. Facing all of these crises, what do? Well, good living recognizes and supports the traditional knowledge and strategies of our people, such as mitigation and adaptation to climate change according to our coexisting, because climate change is here to stay and it won't go back. This is something that will move forward. So we need to reconstitute good living, and indigenous people deliver to the world our paradigmatic proposal. They've done this in Bolivia, not very many in Peru. But at the United Nations, they're talking about this process, but we need to reach consensus for approval. We recognize the supranational organizations. So the states have their national organizations, and we also have regional organizations that articulate and work together at a local level, local organizations, and national level, national organizations. At the United Nations or OAS level, we have regional organizations that have been working with us for many years. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Miguel. A lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, and a lot of struggle to think and to live, and also to put this thinking in practice. Thank you very much. So now we conclude this second panel and this first day of the activity. I think that just by looking at you all, I believe it was really very fruitful. We have done a real and true exchange, and we all go back home thinking. So we expect you to see you tomorrow. So let's say goodbye. We would like to thank you all for being here today. We hope this day has been enriching. We believe it was. So we resume tomorrow at 10 a.m. and to have a second day with 2 more panels and another set of speakers. So thank you very much and welcome to the National University of Avellaneda. Thank you.